Hello, my name is Elise and I'm a children's librarian in Massachusetts. I work at the Acton Memorial Library and I also work in Wayland and Needham. I'm here today to do a family activity craft. It's June and the summer reading program is beginning all over the state. And the theme this year is Imagine Your Story. We're going to be reading stories that feature fantasy like fairy tales and have magical elements and magical creatures. So today's craft is magic carpets. Children are familiar with them from Aladdin, but they are also a feature in many folk tales from different cultures. And I'm going to be doing 6 different rugs that look like this and are using different materials. And I'm going to go over the materials you'll need. You won't need all of these depending on what you choose to make. Now the first thing though that you will need is board. This is regular cardboard, but you are going to be punching holes. And so this can be a little thick to get through. You can do it, but it's a little bit hard if you have to do 20 or 40 holes. You might use a manila file. This is a little thin, but it could work. You might cut up a cardboard envelope, but the best thing for this one was cereal boxes and Kleenex boxes. Now, I used many materials because there are 6 projects. Some of the materials or supplies and tools were a punch and a good scissors. If you use fabric, you might want pinking shears. I definitely used glue, not a glue stick. And then I used fabric, I used felt, I used yarn, I used ribbon, and I also used string or raffia. I used regular paper and tissue paper. I used paints, and you can also use markers and crayons. So you don't need all of these materials. It really will depend on which ones you choose to do, and they're all fun. And the first one I did was a carpet out of ribbons, and it was from a Kleenex box. It's a good shape because it's not that large, and so you can make several, and you don't need a lot of pieces of ribbon. I was lucky for my fringe. I was able to use this very beautiful ribbon that we received as a donation. And I used a lot of small pieces of ribbon. I had these different pieces, and I even used gauze. And I cut the pieces and glued them down and pressed down to make sure it stuck. I even pressed it into a book to make it straight. Now there was one problem, and that the gauze didn't look very pretty on the dark cardboard. So I layered a pink ribbon and then put the gauze on top. So this was very easy, and if you make it small, you can make several. The next one I did was out of felt. And here's my rug. Again, I was lucky. We had this great yarn that had been, again, a donation. And it gives my rug kind of a boho feeling. And I just used strips of yarn. I cut out these rectangular shapes. And again, using glue, I glued them down. I think this is great. I like this rug. Very soft and comfortable. Now the next rug I did was out of fabric. And let me just move these things. And I had a square of quilting fabric that I had gotten. And here is my rug. I had many small pieces of fabric. Again, it's a Kleenex box. And I decided to cut strips of the different fabrics. And they didn't even go together all that well, but I figured it would work out. And so I cut these strips with a pinking shear. And there they are. And I realized I didn't want them to overlap or touch each other. And the problem was the background of the cardboard looked unattractive. So using a marker, I simply colored the background purple, and then I used glue and glued the fabric strips. And I like the way the purple shows up. Now for my fringe on this one, I used raffia, but you could also use wrapping ribbon. It's a good choice, or twine. Walk around your house and look and see how the rugs that you have, how they're finished. So this was my fabric rug. Now the next one I did was painting, and I love this rug. It's from a cereal box, and I just used a nice textural soft yarn in one color because the rug had such nice colors. And the paint I used was a metallic paint. It's a washable tempera paint or poster paint, but with a metallic sheen. If you don't have that, use regular paint and sprinkle glitter to give your magic carpet some magic, or use glitter glue or a glitter glaze or something like that. And I think this one is a great magic carpet. Now the next one I used was cut paper, and I decided to use scraps. We're always cutting up paper for programs, and I have a whole box full of it, and I use it a lot. And I cut out, first I was going to do squiggles and squares and circles and rectangular shapes, stripes, but I decided to do something different. I have a book that's called Cut Out Fun with Matisse, and it's a book about the cutout artwork that Henri Matisse did at the end of his life. He was ill and he couldn't paint any longer, and he was in a wheelchair, but he would either have people paint beautiful colors on paper, and then using a very large scissors, he would cut out organic, beautiful shapes, and he made beautiful artwork, murals and other things. And so I decided to make a rug that was inspired by Henri Matisse, who lived about 100 years ago. And here is my rug. This is out of the heavy cardboard, and I had to punch those holes and just used a solid color yarn. I didn't have a lot of choices in color. And then I took my scraps of paper and I began cutting shapes. I didn't trace, I didn't use a pencil, I just cut fun shapes that made me think of Matisse. It's easy, it really isn't that hard to do. They're a lot of fun, all of his wonderful shapes. And then I put them on the cardboard and layered them and created a design. And when I was satisfied with it, I took a picture. And then I moved them off, and using the picture from my phone, I glued them down. So here is my Henri Matisse inspired magic carpet. And you could do anything like that very easily. Now the next one I'm going to show you is made out of tissue paper, and here's this crazy rug. I used 3 different kinds of yarn, and I crumpled the tissue paper and glued it on. It reminds me of a shag rug, or those rugs you see made out of cut up leather that's very soft. And I'm going to show you specifically how I did this one. Here is a smaller version, and I cut up the tissue paper in there's 2 pieces. I layered it, and these are about 2 inches or 1.5 inches wide. And I just crumpled it. And then I made all the different colors, and I had them available. And I'm just going to show you how I did it. I took my glue and I just painted the glue down on the cardboard. And and sometimes if they unraveled, I just had to scrunch them again. And I just glued them down, scrunching them some more. And sometimes you had to cut it off at the end, or you had to add some. And you just make sure that it's touching the glue. And there it is. You could make small little dots of scrunched tissue paper too. That would be a lot of fun, like a Seurat painting of pointillism. And now I'm quickly going to show you how I did my fringe. I had pieces of yarn or ribbon that were about 6 inches long. I cut them out and folded them, and I have a loop at the end and 2 cut ends. Here's the back of your rug, and from the back I inserted the 2 ends into a hole, and then I pulled those 2 ends through that loop and pulled, and there is my fringe. And you just trim it at the end like bangs, and your trim will be nice and neat. So these are great, fun projects. It was fun to do small rugs because I could do them more quickly, and I didn't need big pieces of felt or ribbon or paper. And they're not only, though, fun things to make. These are great for imaginary play. You have a magic carpet, and maybe there's a magical beast who's looking for someone. Or maybe it's a knight trying to find a damsel in distress or Snow White. And maybe it's Batman who needs to get somewhere very fast. Or perhaps it's Darth Vader who decided to show up on a magic carpet. Oops. Or an alien who's visiting our planet from another one. Have a great time with these. Make as many as you like and imagine your own story. Bye.